Hey guys, welcome back to the BuzWeaver channel. And in our top stories today, which most everyone was probably maybe anticipating, whether or not I was going to cover the debate from last night. Now, if you've been a subscriber to the channel for any period of time, you guys already know my thoughts on debates. And to me, a debate is just a way for the parties to pander and score points to their base. Now, that doesn't matter whether it's a Democrat or it's Republican. The fact is that debates in this style and format with rules and regulations and biased moderators from the mainstream media, in most cases, does not give a good representation of what the American people are thinking. In my opinion, I believe that these debates should be town hall style debates where American people can ask questions. What's on their minds is a bigger concern of me than point scoring by the mainstream media to get their narrative out there and point scoring by the various parties to get their points out there. And that's why you see things like, why didn't Donald Trump admit that he lost the 2022 or the 2020 election, this, that, and the other? See, this is all point scoring for the parties, for their ideology, their philosophies, and worldview. This doesn't answer the question. You know, imagine a person at home deciding on whether they need to buy medicine or groceries. Do you think they're going to be concerned on whether or not Donald Trump thought he won the 2020 election? Now, the question, although never addressed by either Trump or JD in this situation, is that there was no standing. So it didn't matter whether or not Trump thought that there was some discrepancies, because there always are discrepancies in an election. There is always some level of fraud. It is minute, but it's there, right? But to suggest that it was massive fraud in this sort of thing, the judges would not give standing. In other words, they weren't going to look into it because their attitude was it wouldn't be sufficient enough to overturn the results. This is rarely, if ever, clarified in any way. And this is why I don't like debates, because they use specific questions in a specific way to get a specific result. Never liked them, don't like them. This is why I don't always like talking about debate, because debate and being on debate teams and things like that, there's always rules, there's always methodology, there's always techniques and procedures that you can use to then try to defend yourself or turn the tides on your opponent. Not a fan. Much prefer town hall where real Americans can ask questions. So from Politico, dead even, Politico snap poll shows stark division on debate. I would argue that if they're claiming that this was a, dead even debate, it means that JD Vance won. Because the mainstream media is not going to admit, not many of them anyway, that JD Vance had won the debate. But what did he actually win? If it's not changing polling numbers, which I think it changed some, or betting odds, which it did change some, let me get to the actual information that's going to back up what I'm saying. I don't know why they chose that picture of poor Tim. That was an awful picture of him there. But here's what I'm talking about. Who won the VP debate? Depends on which party you're in. Well, of course, the whole debate was based on pandering to the party. So the Democrats said, yeah, 72%, yeah, we're totally with Tim Walz, he won, and 5% said JD did. And then Republicans, 4% said Tim did, and then 71% said that JD did. And this is the parties, 1 percentage point. But here's what's significant. Didn't watch other, 41%. That's massive. Now, let me illustrate that now. We're going to go through the BuzWeaver archives here. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, I've got all the data here. I got all the data here from the last, at least the last 8 years. I got all the data. And as you can see here, that 41% is roughly in here. Politically, what does that say? Disengaged. So these are people that are just like, I'm so sick of it. I'm so tired of it. I'm so fatigued from it. I don't want to deal with it anymore. This is 26%. Then you have moderates, and then you have passive liberals. And these are the groups right here that are making up that 41% roughly. Now, of course, that's not the mathematical number, but I'm just saying that this group here is what the politicians and the establishment uniparty and the Republicans are all shooting for. The middle, and then these two groups right here. So as you can see here, this article, I wish I had gotten the date on it. This was on June the 3rd, but it's been a while. See, Biden says Americans will pay high prices for as long as it takes, and again blames Putin for surging food and gas costs. President insists U.S. is not going backwards. Inflation is higher in every country, and we have the strongest economy. So here's Biden admitting that we're paying higher prices already. So people have very short memories, and it's difficult for people to consume and, remember and absorb all of this information because it is massive. And that's why I ask you guys to like and share the videos so we can defeat the algorithm here on YouTube, as well as allow people the advantage to see this stuff broken down. Now, granted, I have my particular political leaning bias, but I try to take the information, aggregate it, break it down, and just kind of show it from my perspective. If you disagree, then you can bring up your perspective. But this is what I'm seeing based on what's out there. So from CBS, who won the VP debate? Here's what Debate Watchers said in a CBS News poll. Who cares what Debate Watchers said? What about the mothers and fathers and people out there trying to take care of their bills, trying to buy groceries for themselves or their families, trying to afford gas, trying to afford expenses that they have at their home? Why are they going to be concerned about which one of these particular political figures was able to score points? In the first and likely only vice presidential debate between Tim Walz and J.D. Vance, voters who watched Tuesday night said it was almost an even match. Okay, in media speak, that means J.D. Vance won. That's as simple as I can put it. Call me biased if you want to, but for the mainstream media to admit that it was nearly a tie or dead even, this suggests that Vance did a great job. Now, here's the reason why it's a tie. Because Vance and Walz are politicians. They speak the speak, they walk the walk, they do the antics, they do the emotion, they do the knee-jerk reaction, because these guys are politicians. And you're probably saying, well, what about Donald Trump? Isn't he a Republican? Donald Trump is a populist. He is an idea man. He is a goal-oriented individual. He doesn't get caught up in the minutia. He doesn't get caught up in the superficiality, pettiness of politics. He sets goals. He tries to achieve those goals. He tries to convince people that his ideas, philosophies, and worldview, though you may not agree with him, are ideal, or he tries to find the best solutions to solve the problems that we're facing here in America. But when it comes to politics, it doesn't work that way. When it comes to politics, it's not about a boss directing people in what they need to do to accomplish their jobs or accomplish the goals that he sets. In politics, it's I scratch your back, you scratch mine. It's quid pro quo. You do this for me, I do this for you. You help me pass this bill, I help you pass that bill. And that's the way politics works. So it doesn't matter how much of an idealist you are, how charismatic you are, how influential you are. You are going against the machine. And the machine is going to decide how things are going to unfold. And we've already seen this happen. So let me pull up this article here. I know I'm kind of jumping around, but I just needed to illustrate my point. When I say establishment uniparty, I mean a group of individuals like we saw in the shadow campaign, corporatists, corporations, CEOs, businesses, super PAC, like right here, for example, the military-industrial complex, big tech, big pharma, academia, these groups of individuals that have a lot of power, unions. See here, donors to pro-Biden super PAC are said to withhold roughly $90 million. The decision to withhold such enormous sums of money is one of the most concrete examples of the fallout from President Biden's poor debate performance at the end of June. So who did this impact? The donors, the party members, the pundits, the political figures, the mainstream media, the establishment uniparty. Debates are for the parties to pander and cater to and score points with their base. Okay? I think I've made that pretty clear. This is what I mean by the establishment uniparty. The individuals in power, in control, in business, in industry, in markets. The industrial military complex is one of the biggest ones of all. And then the super PAC donors also influence it because it's about the money. And many a times, as we saw in a viral video from a Democrat volunteer, it all comes down to getting the money. Convincing wealthy party members to give money. And I just want to illustrate this to you guys because this is what I see every single day on Twitter. Being involved in politics, being involved in the culture war, as it were. And you see Joe here say, the party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command. And this is from George Orwell. And then I post right here, as I have been posting for years, Senate acquits Trump for inciting Capitol riot, even as bipartisan majority votes to convict. Now, why doesn't Joe get this? She doesn't want to get it. The Democrats don't want to get it. They don't want people to believe that Donald Trump is not guilty of something. They need Donald Trump to be a one-dimensional villain. They need Donald Trump to be a terrible human being. They dehumanize Donald Trump, and they want to make sure that people do not vote for him. And I see this every single day from Joe, from every single person on the left, every single day. They continue to badger, attack, dehumanize Donald Trump every single day. We need town hall debates so average, everyday people can ask questions and American people can hear and see what their fellow Americans are concerned about and have the politicians respond to that. Here from Marjorie Taylor Greene's parody account, what comes to your mind when you see this poll from CNN on who won the debate? I don't care. I don't care. Because this superficial knee-jerk type behavior is what the politicians are targeting, as we mentioned here. They're targeting this group of people right in this area right here. And that's what the debates are for. But as we saw in the political poll, 41% of people didn't watch. And that's probably the middle, because they know that a debate like this between two politicians, genuine politicians, was going to be very even. And when I say even, I mean J.D. Vance won. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. And Tim Walz missed opportunity. Now, that's amazing for Politico to say that, because Politico is one of the big voices on the left, which is extraordinary. And then, of course, there was a misspeak by Tim Walz that was quickly and completely ignored, and is completely and totally ignored in social media, with the exception of someone like myself, and even Elon mentioned this. But I become friends with school shooters. And I think what Tim was trying to say is he's become friends with people who were victims of school shooters. And, I have the presence of mind, the common sense, and the intellectual honesty to realize that he misspoke. And I understood what he was trying to say. But people like Joe over here, who can read things like I read them, decide that they just want to ignore the reality of what is actually happening because they have an agenda. They have a narrative. I would say that they're emotionally irresponsible as well. Emotionally irresponsible seems like a weird way of framing things. But the idea is that they use this methodology, knee-jerk reactions, to get these reactions from people, right? The power of suggestion. And now if we look at some of the polling here, now of course showing Harris at 2.2, and we always have to remember the fact that Democrats are often oversampled, or even Republicans are often oversampled, and the margins for error. And we saw back in 2020, it was Biden was up 7.4, which wasn't exactly accurate at the end of the election, and then Clinton at 2.5. Now, CNN was saying that Clinton was up by 12 points, which is absolutely extraordinary. But as we see with the debate, when it comes down to here, and here's the other one from CBS, 42 with 41 Walz, you always have to take in consideration, you need to always typically add about 5 points to the Republican. I mean, that's not an exact science, okay? It's not an exact science. I'm just saying that you always need to add at least 2 to 5 more points to the Republican, because in typical fashion of the media, they will oversample to get the results that they're kind of at least looking for. And so here we see Harris at 2.2. In most of these areas, she's up by 1, up by 6. And, at the end of the day here, we see that it's 49.2 versus Trump's 47. But like I said, margins of error here with Harris is 2.2. So if you take away that 2.2, then you got Trump and her basically tied, or Trump maybe barely or just kind of leading. And then here we have the betting odds, which I've always said is where people, put their money where their mouth is, on the second. So we see Trump at 49.4. So he took a little bit of an edge thanks to J.D. Vance, right? So this is an illustration, again, of how the parties pander and cater and score points to their base. This is what they're trying to do. The base like myself and others, and the right and Republicans, and the far left and the left, have already made up their minds who they're voting for. Democrats and Republicans already made up their mind who they're voting for. So all of this pomp and circumstance and show is just for that middle group that I showed you earlier. And here in the national polling, we see Harris at 48.5 with a margin of error of 2.8. So again, we go back to the fact that if you factor in the margins of error, I always like to add at least 5 points to the Republican, because they're going to oversample Democrats so that their stats can be padded. Because these middle groups of people, these undecided voters, as they often identify them as, are people, typically people, not everybody, but typically, when people are in that poll and they're trying to decide, they're trying to make that decision, they typically go with what they think is popular. So if they can make Kamala Harris look popular, they can grab that element of the psychology, right? That element of the behavior of human behavior is to go with what they think is popular. And that's really why they play this game. The information doesn't have to be true. It doesn't have to be accurate. All they have to do is get a knee-jerk reaction to illustrate and demonstrate that Donald Trump is a terrible human being and you shouldn't vote for him. And here's our super PACs again. But another element to this, as we talked about here as well, see? All evaluative statements about former Vice President Joe Biden, 8 positive, 4 negative. And then when it comes to Donald Trump, it's 34 positive, 634 negative. This is the media biased. And we see here the media bias with Trump, 62%. It nearly equals all of the former presidents. And it's absolutely extraordinary. With Biden, he gets 46% mostly positive, 39 mixed, and 14% negative. So, like I said, there is no mystery as to how this methodology and system works. Here we have from Michael, mainstream news journalists believe they are more fair and objective than the public. I totally disagree. But Pew finds that the opposite, which is, reasonable to conclude, where 76% of U.S. adults agree that journalists should always strive to give every side equal coverage. Just 44% of journalists do. Staggering, isn't it? Amazing, isn't it? This is why I say share these videos, because it does, it does take time to do all this research and to evaluate and to look into all this. And I know people don't have this type of time, especially the people in the middle that the Democrats are trying to grab up or the Republicans are trying to grab up. Journalists should always strive to give every side equal coverage. 44% of journalists, 76% of journalists say they should, but only 44% of journalists say they should. Every side does not always deserve equal coverage. 55% of journalists, 22% of adults. If this doesn't illustrate the media bias, and this is from February 1st, 2023. I thought it was much older than that. Wow. But this is what I talk about here on the BuzWeaver channel, is that just like with this debate, it's all going to come down to the individuals. It's going to come down to the parties. Which one of these parties can convince enough people to vote for them? And Democrats are all about grabbing votes. They don't have to go into any details about their policies. They don't have to go into any details about their goals. All they have to do is sloganeer and tell people, just like with Kamala Harris. Let me begin by saying that I come from a middle-class family. How is that an answer to a question? It's absolutely extraordinary to me. And it takes a lot of guts for CBS News here to say that J.D. Vance was at 42%. And I'm seeing across the board, across social media, that many believe that J.D. Vance won or it was an absolute tie, which again says that J.D. Vance won. But I welcome your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below on what you thought about the debate, if you even watched it. And of course, I want to thank all you guys across NewTek, BitChute, Rumble, and Odyssey for your guys' continued support. And everyone here, you can find the various social media links that I belong to down below, as well as my affiliate marketing. All those things help out the channel. And of course, your likes and shares do as well. But that's what I had for you about the debate. Now, so I covered it. I talked about it, so you guys know what my feelings are about it. So appearing there on the screen, that would be the channel icon. You guys can click on that if you're watching here on YouTube to subscribe, as well as to select notifications. That way you know when there's content here on the channel. And I will see all you guys in the next video.